On PM Express tonight, a conversation that started from Parliament last Friday with the approval of the Agyapa deal and unraveling the Agyapa Minerals Agreement. Whose interest does the deal serve? That's what we'll be trying to interrogate tonight and also find answers to questions that have been asked severally since the deal was approved. So on Friday, Parliament approved that bill, the controversial Agyapa Royalties Limited agreement with the government of Ghana, and it sparked a lot of controversy. This sparked the debate over whose interest the deal has actually or is actually going to serve. And 2 years ago, Parliament passed the Minerals Income Investment Fund Act 2018. And this is just by the way, for us to actually understand the conversation, we need to get a background into the deal. And the Act establishes the Minerals Income Investment Fund to manage the equity interest of Ghana in mining companies and also receive royalties on behalf of government. Okay, so the fund is supposed to manage and invest these royalties and revenue from equities for higher returns for the benefit of the country. It does more. The Mineral Income Investment Fund will remain the majority shareholder of this deal that was approved in Parliament on Friday. But the minority has some concerns. ARL will raise between $500 million and $750 million for government to use for the developmental initiatives. And then future resources from gold royalties will go to ARL shareholders instead of the Mineral Investment Fund, and for that matter, government. And those are what will happen with this deal. Now, these are the concerns being raised by the minority. One, the minority claims the agreement makes it impossible for a future government to replace managers of Asase royalties, although the Minerals Income Investment Fund will remain the majority shareholder. It also says the agreement is based on the amendment done to the Minerals Income Investment Fund Act a few weeks ago, which, though approved by Parliament, has not been signed into law yet by the President. And this, they say, makes the deal an illegality because it is being backed by that act. It also says it is a bad idea to mortgage future revenues from gold royalties for a lump sum money today. We'll be interrogating all of these claims. And the big question tonight is, whose interest does the deal serve? Tonight, my guest on PM Express, John Jenapo, is member of the Mines and Energy Committee in Parliament. He's also the member of Parliament for Yape Kusegu. And George Duka is chairman of the Mines and Energy Committee. Ben Boakye will also be joining the conversation. He's the director of the Africa Center for Energy Policy. All of them will be part of the interrogation tonight. Let me start with you, George Duka, if you're on. He's the chairman. I'm told George Duka is not on yet, but John Jenapo is on. John, you claim the agreement makes it impossible for a future government to replace managers of Agyapa Royalties. How so? Because we're also told that the Minerals Income Investment Fund will remain the majority shareholder.
Thank you very much. First of all, let me thank you for the opportunity and to greet my brother Ben and the Honorable Duke as well. Like we rightly said, and I think you captured that, the first issue had to do with the law. And clearly, the question that we asked is, why come to Parliament when the law itself has not been amended? And if you go to page 3 of the minister's own document, the minister confirms that, Ms. E, Parliament has passed certain amendments to the Mineral Income Investment Fund. The Fund Act amendments are in the process of being assented to by the President and will shortly come into force. So the Minister of Finance is confirming that these laws that were amended is yet to be assented to by the President, and that upon President assenting to the bill, then it becomes law. So if the law is not in operation yet, as the Minister himself confirmed, then why come to Parliament? On what basis are you seeking for parliamentary approval? Because this is the minister stating clearly that the law would shortly come into force. What it means is that the law is not yet in force. That is number one. Then if you go to page 5 of the minister's memo, the last paragraph, the minister says that following certain amendments to the fund coming into force, the amended related and all that, investment agreements, he says that some other provision would be amended and to incorporate certain additional provisions. What it means is that when we grant approval and they go to sign the agreement with would-be investors, they would make changes to the agreement in order to reflect the interest of those investors. So in the spirit of accountability, in the spirit of transparency, why wouldn't you go through all these amendments that you intend to incorporate, sign them off, and then bring it to Parliament for ratification? Why do you want Parliament to grant you approval? Then you will go and incorporate, as he said, certain additional provisions. So which are these additional provisions? We do not know as a Parliament. And Parliament, our role is to ratify, is to grant approval following negotiations. That is why as ministers, when we go into Parliament, we only initiate, waiting for Parliament's approval, then we sign up. So I thought that they should have done this before. But let me now come to the financial aspect of this whole agreement. Why are we going into this agreement? It's critical, and I think that every Ghanaian ought to ask that question. Why would government decide that they want to chart this path? And if you read the memo, the minister states clearly that because of the debt level of the country, they think that they should go for what they call non-recourse loan, or loans that will not sit on our books. Currently, our debt is about 258 billion. Our total tax revenue this year will be 42 billion. Out of this 42 billion, 22 billion of that will be used to service debts. So it means that when we take our tax revenue as a country, more than half of that alone is used to service debts. So if you're a country and your challenge has to do with how to service your debt, how do you deal with that? And let me just put on record that this 42 billion, inclusive of the tax revenue of 42 billion, is more than 1 billion of mineral royalties. So these mineral royalties that we are talking about, every year we get over 1 billion of that, and that is part of our total revenues. And it's out of these total revenues that we use to service our debts. What we have decided to do today is to go and do what we call an SPV and seed off the 1 billion. So you are complaining that your debt is so high, you are not getting enough revenues to pay your debt. And the solution that you have adopted is that you take some money and then seed off all those revenues to that SPV. I don't think that is wise at all. So if you look at the United States, their debt to GDP is 80%. Japan, their debt to GDP is over 200%, far higher than Ghana. But because they get revenue, they are able to service the debt. So your debt to GDP alone is not enough. It's about the revenues that you get in order to service the debt. So if your revenues are falling, why do you push the revenues further down? When you are getting about $200 million per annum, you decide that you will go for 500 million and skip the 200 million. But there's a critical question. If you want to take 500 million, don't you think that the people of Ghana ought to be told precisely what you're using the money for? You don't take a huge sum of loan worth about $500 million and just put it in the budget and say that it's for budgetary expenditure. When you are taking such money, where the state has decided that we will keep these monies forever, so far as these mining leases that they have identified are in operation, we are ceding those monies to these SPVs. So the question is, how are we going to even use this 500 million? Are we going to build roads? Are we going to build railways? Are we going to invest in agriculture? Just like we do with the Eurobond. When you are going to a huge facility like the Eurobond, you itemize what you want to use the money for. So the Parliament to approve that. On this case, and in this case, that was not done.
Thankfully, Thankfully, George Duka has joined us. And I'd like to put the same question to you, George Duka. The minority is claiming that the agreement makes it impossible for a future government to replace managers of Agyapa Royalties. Is that the case? What does the agreement say with regards to this? Honorable Duka, kindly unmute for me. Hello, Mr. Duka. Yes.
My network is very unstable, but I was saying that unfortunately the minority could not state categorically part of the agreement that states that we're not going to be able to change managers of Agyapa. They've been running around with this, rumor. I'll call it rumor because it's not emphatically stated in the agreement that Agyapa, managers of Agyapa cannot be changed. If you look at the structure of the whole fund, government of Ghana has 51% of the shares. And impliedly, if government of Ghana has that 51%, then government of Ghana has that control and can change managers at all times. So I don't know how they have taken the context of this agreement. And I don't know whether they've gone through thoroughly to understand the whole principles or the ingredients of this agreement. I get worried when someone says, yes, someone has some sort of shares in a company and you don't have that control. And what will be the implication of the shares that you have? So if you go through the agreement, I don't see where it is stated categorically. And if you can help me with that, going through the agreement to state that, yes, we have an indemnity, with this part of the agreement that states, yes, you cannot change managers of the agreement. Let's take our time to understand the whole structure. Yes, indeed, it's a new thing that we bring in on board. If you don't understand anything, you need to ask questions, and you have that legitimacy to ask questions. My concern is the aspect of the fund itself. People are running around that it's a bond, it's a loan. It isn't a loan. It's a company that is going to be listed on the London Stock Exchange. On the London Stock Exchange. And I know Ghanaians know the credibility of London Stock Exchange. And you will not be listed if you don't deal with tenets of transparency. If you're going to just be called a company and you are not transparent, you can't be listed on the London Stock Exchange. And that must be accepted. And that must be also part of a criteria in critiquing, the agreements and this recital vehicle set up by the Act. And for that matter, the fund itself. We have the parent fund that is setting up this purposeful vehicle that will seek to, sort of get investors, put their resources into the fund. Then we can sort of ring fence this revenue stream and develop Ghana. Yes, if someone asks a question, what are we going to use it for? It's a legitimate question, and we need to answer that. And I don't think that should create a problem for us. This time around, as we had the Petroleum Revenue Management Act that has been ring-fenced, or has ring-fenced the revenue stream, we can track the revenue stream from the petroleum sector. So if we have a fund that seeks to also guide and guard the revenue flow of our gold, royalties, we must be proud of. This is a time that we must be energized in terms of, using our resources judiciously.
One of the concerns that have been raised, Mr. Duka, is the fact that the Agyapa has been incorporated in it's a UK-based offshore company, and it's actually the company that will be managing our revenues. Why isn't it the other way around? actually being a Ghanaian company and having subsidiaries in other parts of the world?
Agyapa that they are also mentioning, and you go through the structure of Agyapa, it's still having Ghana having 50. We're not, in a way, trading with all the concessions that we have. We've only listed about 16 of our companies are getting the revenue from the 16 companies that has been or that have been listed, and the rest.
Okay, we're having challenges. I would like to bring in Ben Boakye here. Okay, so we'll try and get George Duka back on that one. But Ben Boakye, who is the Executive Director of the Africa Center for Energy Policy, is also with us here. Now, Ben, the deal allows for the collateralization of Ghana's gold retains in exchange for an initial sum of about $500 million. Good deal? Hello, Ben Boakye. Kindly unmute for me.
Thanks for having me, Aisha, and good evening to honorable members on this panel. I think before I get to that point about whether it's a good deal, I think in policy making, and this has been part of the work we do, we are interested in participating in some of these processes. And even if it's a stupid idea we do have, we will be able to contribute and participate. And my impression about how this particular parliament, has handled agreement is that they don't welcome participation in policy making, and that is quite regrettable. You will hardly find, Parliament calling on you or any civil society organization to say that we have this process ongoing and therefore we're seeking input into the process. And that is what has generated this kind of heat that we have on our hands right now. Bring that into perspective. I mean, what does this stand suggest to us as a people? We have set up processes as a country to ensure that communities where gold is extracted actually benefits from the outputs of the gold. So over the years, we have been setting aside 10% of that for the community. So the Mineral Income Act receives 20% of the revenue, and part of that is ceded to the communities. So what civil society has been pushing is for a greater transparency around the entire revenue stream so that those communities would benefit the more and, see development. So we have been pushing for a broader Mineral Revenue Act, which was promised, by this government to deliver. And if you read the manifesto of the NPP, they say that 20% goes into the mineral income, the MDF, and they're going to increase that to 30%, right, to ensure that the communities benefit the more. But what we have seen over the period is that rather the communities are now getting about 7%, rather than the 20% that was promised. That actually exists in law, and we are further cutting that, through this arrangement to get more revenue for this new arrangement that has been set up. And I think the question about transparency is what is critical for us. When the Mineral Income Investment Act was actually passed, we were shocked how that could go through Parliament without civil society participating in that process. So we kept asking the questions about how the SPV will be set up, at what point is it going to be set up, to look for the opportunity to actually participate in that process, only to realize that this surprise has, been sprung on all of us. And we still do not know, even though the agreement has passed in Parliament. It is registered in tax haven in Jersey. Why not in London, if you're listed on London Stock Exchange? Why not in the US, if you want a more credible jurisdiction to actually register the company? So you and I are definitely not going to be able to know the beneficial owners of this company until somebody offer us that detail, right? So if we want to avoid some of these challenges, I think we throw it to the public and have a conversation. You don't need to win in that conversation, but once the consensus tilts in the majority way and the nation understands that this is what we want to do, because it's a journey that we are subjecting all our mineral royalties to. And significantly, all right, if you look at the revenue stream of Ghana today, it is mineral royalty that hasn't been battered by COVID. So the royalties are going to be significant for the budget. They're going to be significant for the projects that we need to invest in over a longer period of time. And that is being ring-fenced and given to a vehicle that we do not control. A vehicle that has been established in Jersey, we're only told that Ghana government has 51%, but the structure of the 49% would have to be told afterwards. You know, so these are very important things that we have to really look into. What is the rush? Today, we are likely to realize over 200 million from royalty this year, because gold prices have moved in 2020 to over $2,000. So that is the major stream that we have to be able to raise revenue. Another point that we need to also make, it looks like we are trying to find, you know, ways to generate more debt revenue and move away from our debt being accounted in the mainstream of our debt portfolio. And therefore, we're finding smart way of really circumventing those processes. But if you are going to take an investment of 500 million and you do not have the revenue to be able to service your debt to do development, it's still the same, in essence, except that when we go to your debt books, we will not see that categorically stated. But you don't have the $200 million a year, which would have contributed to your revenue and would have also contributed to your debt service commitment, right? So these are conversations that we needed to have. And then the winner actually emerges. But here we are, we were not offered the opportunity. Citizens didn't know. Parliament took it through, you know, the usual rush, and it is passed. And Ghana's revenue is going to go over this long haul. And I think that is quite regrettable.
Well, thankfully, we have George Duka, who is back on the line. A number of questions are being raised. Number one, why we are going to an offshore company in Jersey and not any other place? Why is it not in Ghana even, so that we have other subsidiaries in other parts of the world? Again, the issue of generating debt revenues. And of course, I mean, the whole deal, people think that it's shredded in secrecy and that a lot more details will resolve all of these concerns being raised. How do you respond to all of this?
Yes, I'm happy the civil society is also sort of raising some concerns with this, and it's their right.
Okay, so we still have... Great. Make your points, Mr. Duka.
Yes, so participation is good, but fortunately, we've consulted widely as, you know, interested partners, and we've had consultants, we have local, you know, consultant, we've had international consultant, we've consulted largely in terms of civil society organizations and so on and so forth. So yes, participation, we've, you know, also included the minority. We met the finance committee, they brought diverse views to support this whole idea. And I believe going forward, what we need to do is to ask questions if we don't understand anything, and those answers will be provided.
But the minority asked those questions before even staging a walkout on Friday, before that deal was approved.
Can you come again? My network has really been unstable.
I'm saying
but
that
if I heard you right,
some of the questions, Mr. Aduka, I'm saying that some of the questions you're talking about were raised in Parliament by the minority even before that bill was approved, before they even staged the walkout. Yes,
answers were provided in terms of why Jersey. I can't remember one member from the minority asked that question, why Jersey? And he was told that Jersey because of tax advantages. And we all know Jersey and what we can use some of these vehicles to attract.
And what are those advantages?
What? Tax purposes. I mean, you have tax holidays. When you are marketing around this area. And another thing that we must also put it on record is we're not adding any loan threshold to what we have. No, it's not something, we're not going for a loan. This is what we are trading with what we have. We want to get our money, in simple terms, to develop our nation. We have a stream that comes intermittently, quarterly, monthly, sometimes yearly, depending on the agreement you have with an individual concession, that has been established. Now we have a situation or an advantage where we can have our money at a go to develop our nation. And that is all that we want. TAQA has been providing so much in terms of gold. Obuasi, same. Other jurisdictions, same. What do we have to show the people of Ghana that, yes, indeed, we have this gold resources, and this is what we can show to the people of Ghana in terms of tangibles? We don't have anything because we pay everything into the consolidated fund. Now, there is an idea that let's have a ring-fenced revenue stream where we can track what we get from these concessions that we have. Now, the argument has been that, yes, South Africa has been able to develop the respective, states over there, like Cape Town, like Johannesburg, and we have nothing to show. South Africa has been able to do that because they've built local champions. The gold companies there belong to the indigenes, whilst we have foreigners established in Ghana, and we cannot compare our revenue structures with South Africa. So how do we build local champions also here? And this is an idea that we can have enough revenue stream to build local champions. And that is, the idea of the president and this government. And yes, it's a new thing, as I've already indicated. We can ask more questions. We are ready to answer, and everything is done, transparently. When Parliament, the agreement was submitted before Parliament, we had committee sessions. We brought the whole discussion to the plenary. Argument came from the minority. We had argument also from majority, and that is the beauty of democracy. And that is how we build our nation. Yes, NDC, or the minority for that matter, walked out when we introduced national health insurance. They didn't make it anything that we could not work with. We were able to work with it. We worked with it successfully, and we are working with it. It has come to stay, and I believe if we had listened to them at that time, we couldn't have even introduced the national health insurance. And same thing, and Ben made very, very important point that, yes, views and probably time of introducing some of this to the public, we must be mindful of timing. This is debatable, and it's an opinion. It's his opinion, and I believe I share that opinion. Yes, how do we introduce it? Maybe probably NDC is taking advantage of the gap in terms of communication to drum home what they want to deepen as negative.
But couldn't you have prevented all of these by bridging that gap in the first place?
Yes, that's what your platform is doing now tonight.
But isn't it why they're asking for details, Mr. Duka? I mean, if you are communicating to people, I'm not sure they'll be asking all of these questions at this time.
You see, if you're dealing with investors, and we're talking of foreign investors, wow, madam, what you need to do is to prepare your documents, get all the legalities right. And they're always mindful of transparency and continuity as to whether they have that, longevity of agreement where they can have that faith and trusts. That is, each and every investor will be mindful of that. So you need to be careful, get the details well, then you can hit the road as to...
Let me bring back John Jinapo. Mr. Jinapo, Mr. Duka is saying that you've asked those questions you're talking about. They've provided all the details for you. Why is it still a big deal that the agreement has been approved?
First of all, I hope I'll be given some time to deal with this issue because Honorable Duka has been talking. Honorable Duka says that we've just been talking without providing evidence. If he wants to, he should go and read the relationship agreement. And I refer to page 6. And I refer to page 6, specifically 3.1, undertaking of the fund and the Republic of Ghana. The Republic of Ghana undertakes that it would not remove the chairman or any non-executive director appointed by the board. This is the document. Read that document, and I shall mark it here. Read that document, and it clearly tells you that the Republic, we are guaranteeing that we cannot. Secondly, why did you even change the name from Asase to Agyapa? Just 4 days to come in there. Why are the Lawyers African Services Limited? Isn't there conflict of interest? And like Ben Boakye said, why the haste and why the rush? Honorable Duka says that his mining communities have not developed because mining revenues have been lumped into the consolidated fund. So what is the solution? You go to borrow money and lump that same money into the consolidated fund. We don't even know what you are going to use that money for. But more importantly, we are dealing with 5 different agreements. This is just one of the agreements. One, you present 5 different agreements same day, within 6 hours. You want us to peruse all these agreements, ask all these questions, consult civil society, conduct investigation, and approve all these documents the same day. What kind of governance is this? Where is the transparency? How can I, as a member of parliament, conduct due diligence on these companies? We asked for certain documents. First of all, we asked that what are the revenue streams, the future revenue streams? They could not provide that. And I asked the minister, if you want people to come and invest, then it means that they'll be investing because they'll be receiving some revenues. What is the rate of return? The minister said about 8%. So I said, okay, if you are doing ordinary shares, where is the dividend policy of the company? You must have a dividend policy, because the dividend policy, that will tell investors that at the end of the year, this is how we would share or declare dividend. That was not provided. You want to go and look for investors. When you are going to list an IPO, you need what you call a prospectus. We asked for a copy of the prospectus. We were told that it is not ready and that it cannot be provided. So if all these things are not ready, why are you rushing? And in the spirit of transparency, why do you want to list in Jersey? Go and read about Jersey, the island Jersey. It's a tax haven. It's a tax haven. And for a sovereign state like that of Ghana, why is it that in all places in the world, if you want to establish an SPV, you decide that it is Jersey, the island of Jersey, that you want to go and establish an SPV? Look, let us be honest and let us be frank and sincere to the people of Ghana. This is a very, very bad deal. This deal will not help Ghanaians. If you want to mortgage our future revenues from gold royalties forever, what you need to do is to hold some extensive consultation. Seek people's opinion. You are making a decision that has far-reaching implications into so many years, just because of your so-called 500 million. Why can't you engage broadly? Why can't we discuss this and build consensus? Why the rush? In one day, you want to railroad this system through. We have served notice, and let me put it on record, that when President Mahama assumes office on 7th of January, we would not honor this agreement, would investigate it, ensure that we correct the wrongs.
But
this is not good.
Mr. Jinapor, the Minerals Income Investment Fund Act makes provisions for instance, a special purpose vehicle. One of the issues you're raising. Why did you support approval for that act and now turning around to protest a deal that has been backed by that act?
It's not backed by that act, but that act is not even in existence. And the minister rightfully says that the president hasn't even signed that act. So what we are doing is a nullity, it's an illegality, it's an affront to parliament and an affront to the constitution. Because if the president has not assented to that law, it means that there is no law. So you can't put something on nothing. Number two, the fact that we want an SPV doesn't mean that you should do it shrouded in secrecy and in such an opaque manner. It doesn't also mean that we should cede all our monies to an SPV whose record and rules we don't even know. You can establish an SPV through a transparent process, through consensus building, and ensuring that at least a certain minimum percentage of our revenues goes into the SPV, whilst a majority of the revenues is kept for future generations. That was not the intent of that law. This is unfortunate. This is inimical to the forward march of this country. By this act, by this agreement, we are turning back the clock of Ghana's progress. And I feel very sad. As a member of parliament, Ben Boakye says that, look, this is parliament. And I don't blame him, because it is parliament that went through the process. But let me assure Ben, some of us stood our ground. We insisted that the right thing be done. We insisted that there was no need rushing the process through. We even assured the majority that when we go on recess and they need us any day, even on a Sunday, we'll be willing to come and support the agreement. But the majority insisted, and that is why we exercise the parliamentary tool of walking out and boycotting. But it will not end there. We are writing to JP Morgan Chase. We are writing to Africa Legal Services. We are writing to White & Co., the foreign company that provides legal services, and all those concerned, that they are treading a very dangerous path, and they better retreat, because we will not honor an illegality.
I'll take a break on PM Express. When I return, I'll be getting some reactions from Honorable George Duka on the fact that the minority stood on its grounds and insisted that some of these details be provided, and even promised that they will be coming back from recess to help approve the agreement, but all of that fell on deaf ears. I'll also be engaging Ben Boakye on what recommendations, because the minority says that they want a reversal of that agreement. What is his take on that? All of that when we return from that break. To PM Express, and I'm still here. We're discussing the Agyapa Royalties Company Limited deal with Ghana, which was approved in Parliament on Friday. And I'm still here with John Jinapor, who is member of the Mines and Energy Committee, and the Deputy Mines and Energy Committee Chairman, George Duka. Also, Ben Boakye is the Executive Director of the Africa Center for Energy Policy. And before I went on that break, there were some issues raised by John Jinapor. The fact that the agreement was pushed, it was rushed, and he asked why the rush. George Duka is still here on Zoom. George, quickly clarify that for me. What exactly, because it's one of the most important questions being raised, what exactly would the money be invested in?
Yeah, Aisha, let me clear this before I go to, what we'll use the money for. Aisha, we can be emotional about this. I don't have any problem with that. We can be emotional and be shouting inimical capricious, and so use the words that suit you. But the most important thing is, have we breached any law? That is a question that Ghanaians will be asking.
But first of all, he says the law itself, the law has not been, hasn't received assent from the president, so it's not a law yet, even though it's been passed.
That needs an interpretation, because we also debated that aspect of the law, even before sending the report to the plenary. We had discussions on that, and it's an aspect of the law that we sought to amend. And will that affect the sanctity of the law? It's an aspect that we need to seek interpretation from the Supreme Court, but that is debatable. We can go around, and we'll not finish on that. But
so I'm curious to know what exactly this money will be invested in.
Yes, that's, yes, we have road deficit as we took over power. We're only having about 30% of our roads, tarred. We have about 70% in a deplorable shape. What do? We need to get money to fix that.
So this money will be used for road construction?
In terms of infrastructure, we need to do more. In now, the enrollment at the respective secondary schools have increased tremendously. How do we also ensure that the future, the heritage of our nation is also secured? I mean, putting children in better classrooms. These are concerns of Ghanaians. How do we ensure that we expand electricity to needed villages, cocoa growing areas, and so on and so forth? We have infrastructure deficit. We need to develop our nation. These monies that we are going to raise are going to be used to suit the whims and caprices of Ghanaians. Aisha, he mentioned prospectus, that they sought to see the details of the prospectus. We know this agreement, how we have to be careful as to handling of some of this documents generally. And we told them,
careful?
Anything that minority want to see, they are there for you to see. So I'm surprised. My brother, good brother, Honorable John Jinapo, asked this question at the committee level, and he was told, yes, John, you've asked a very intelligent question. You'll be provided. I mean, if it's prospectus that you're talking of, we have nothing to hide, and it will be provided. And even then, the Deputy Finance Minister sent the details of prospectus to the chair of the committee for members to assess. At that point, the minority also wanted to have enough time to peruse the document, of which the chair of the committee granted. So and is this the first time that we having documents given to MPs or given to committee or being referred to the committee by the speaker to go through, or take 2 or 3 days to go through? We've had these instances.
Let me bring in Ben Boakye. Let me bring in Ben Boakye quickly. We're running out of time. Ben, the minority says the deal will mortgage future revenues from gold royalties for a lump sum money today, which they say won't be in the interest of the state. Do you share same view? Kindly unmute for me, Ben Boakye.
Yes, so for me, essentially, this is contrary to the contract that we have with government. We have been working with government since 2014 for a Mineral Revenue Management Act, which was promised in the NPP manifesto to actually deliver that. And that was to ensure that more revenue is allocated to the communities, and also transparency is brought to bear on how revenues are actually utilized. So this is what we've been hoping to actually achieve. And the process actually started in 2017, where a consultant was actually, it was advertised for a consultant to actually develop, the Mineral Revenue Management Act. And all of a sudden this has come up. So we don't know what the status of what is actually the contract with Ghana and the Ghanaian people, with this new arrangement. Essentially what we are trying to do, as I see it, is to go around the usual process of procuring debt and paying through the budget, to circumvent that process and give the revenue to another vehicle. Because if you look at the structure around it, it's essentially going to cost more money. If you borrowed, even at 10%, right, and you paid, you would have avoided 3 vehicles along the way. So we have to see what could work, because the much details are not even known yet. It's going to be listed before we know what the actual offering of the market would be. If the market gives us 10, 12%, when are we going to start complaining? So we still have to make sure that the law that was promised us is actually delivered. And it's now only in the hands of the president to deliver that, because Parliament has done
I'm grateful, gentlemen, for your time. John Jinapor is a member of the Mines and Energy Committee in Parliament. He's MP for Yape Kusego. Let me quickly, in 30 seconds, give John Jinapor the opportunity to wrap up. The agreement has been passed. What next for the minority? Just in 30 seconds.
First of all, I'm surprised that the president, who is a lawyer, a finance minister, who is a finance expert, and Mr. Gabi Achredako, who is a legal advisor to this whole transaction, thought it prudent to present this agreement to us. And like Ben said, I have the MPP manifesto here. What they promised was what they call a Minerals Revenue Management Law, similar to the Petroleum Revenue Management Act. They promised us a color TV, and today they are giving us a very dirty old black and white TV.
I'm grateful for your time. John Jinapor is a member of the Mines and Energy Committee. George Duka is vice chairman of that committee, Mines and Energy, and Ben Boakye is executive director of Africa Center for Energy Policy. I'm extremely grateful for your time, gentlemen. My name is Aisha Ibrahim. Many thanks for watching. Enjoy the rest of our programs.